I'm going to call you Dr. Robert Garcia because single-handedly, every time I have a chance to speak with you, you know the most and able.
Sí, ya comimos, desayunamos. Sí.
You seem to articulate so much of what boxing fans are thinking and able to put it in terms as a trainer, as a fighter. So let's just say take you out of the mix as a trainer for Mikey Garcia for this fight. When you look at the matchup this fight, what do you think of the matchup and what do you think of their style, what they do stylistically very well?
Look, it's definitely a very challenging fight for both fighters. You know, Mikey moving up in weight and challenging a bigger, stronger guy. It's a huge challenge for Lipinets, being the world champion, the underdog, the one that people don't even know, is a big opportunity for him to shine and win and become a superstar. So, you know, as a trainer, as a former boxer, it's a challenge for both fighters. It's not easy for neither one of them, and it's going to be hard for both of them.
Mikey does so well at, obviously, he's a champion at 135. He's moving up in weight for this fight. Was there ever a consideration to try to do any of these fights at a catch weight since he's been going back and forth between different weight classes?
Yeah, Mikey doesn't want to do any catch weights. Mikey's the type of fighter that he's actually criticized the catch weights before, so it wouldn't sound so good if Mikey's asking for a catch weight. I think whoever Mike fights in the future, if he decides to move up to a heavier weight division, it'll be at whatever the division is at. If the champion is there, Mikey doesn't want to do any catch weights.
You know, we could almost call him the champion killer. His last fight, Dehan Slatakanen, won that fight easily, picked up a title. Here's another fight. He has the potential to perform and win decisively. Should we call him the championship killer since he's moving on? Every competitor is a champion, a champion.
Look, I don't think that's a name that Mikey would like or my father would like. You know, I think Mikey should just be remembered and called, you know, the champion that he is at each weight division. I don't, you know, we don't want to say that because it kind of sounds like Mikey's, you know, disrespecting the champions. The champions are world champions, and they'll always be world champions, even after they lose. That, you know, winning a world title is something that nobody can ever take from them. So we got to respect every champion out there.
During the press roundtable discussion, you mentioned that you wanted to bring in heavy sparring. How big do you want to go in terms of sparring for Mikey for this camp?
Well, look, definitely they have to be at least welterweights. For the Broner fight, we were sparring guys that were walking around 160, 165. So for this fight, we're probably looking at the same way, or even bigger guys. Maybe, you know, I can't say we're gonna bring in light heavyweights because it would be ridiculous for me to do that. But if we bring guys that are welterweights, I'm gonna bring in very talented welterweights, because we can't just bring in a guy that walks around at welterweight and has no skills. We have to bring in guys that have tremendous skills. We can't take this fight lightly.
Best case scenario, this is the first fight of 2018 for him. How active do you think you want to be with him for the next year?
Well, I would like to see him fight 3 times. You know, 2 is good. It's always been good to fight twice, but I think 3 times would be ideal. Mikey fighting early in February. I think his next fight could be in the summer, and then obviously towards the end of the year. I would really like to see him fight 3 times next year, and maybe come down to 135 and unify against any world champions. Linares would probably be my first choice, but that's what we want. Hopefully we do get those 3 fights.
And lastly, I always like to ask you about all the guys. You have such a wealth of talent that trains at the RGBA in both locations. Who are your next guys that we should be on the lookout for, who have fights coming up that you want us to keep our eye on?
Look, definitely my next fighter, you know, another world champion is Abner Mares. I'm trying to have him fight sometime in April or May. That way he could do 2 fights next year, because fighting once a year, is not very good because that gives him too much time off. I want him to fight at least twice next year, and I have a lot of young fighters. Falcao has a very important fight. Both him and Eric De Leon are fighting sometime in March, and they're both in very important fights where if they win, that puts them in a position to be up there in the rankings and maybe fight for a world title before the end of the year. I have another kid that fights for Golden Boy. That's Joshua Franco, who looked sensational in his last fight, and Robert Diaz told me that was his last 8-round fight. He'll start fighting 10 rounds, and hopefully by the end of the year, maybe looking to fighting for a title. So we're in a good position. Josesito Lopez looks like he has a fight coming up in February also, and it looks like it might be against Victor Ortiz. So winning that fight won't be easy, but winning that fight will put Josesito in line for a world title. So next year is going to be a harder year, but with a possibility of maybe getting 2 to 3 kids to fight for world title. And of course, I have all the young guys that are coming up that are fighting 6, 8 rounds, 4 rounds. That 2, 3 years from now will be in this conversation.
So 2018 Boxing Writers Award winner Robert Garcia, Trainer of the Year?
Look, I don't really look for that. I don't really look forward to that. I know it's a great honor to receive those type of awards, but in boxing there's a lot of politics, a lot of favoritism, and when that happens, I just laugh about it. I don't really care if I ever get an award. If I ever get it again, it doesn't really matter to me.
Okay, so then one last question. What's your holiday, if you could have one holiday wish for boxing during this holiday season, what would you want to give to boxing for 2018?
Well, look, this year was great. I have 21 professional fighters, and I only lost 1 fight, including all my 4-round fighters. I just had 1 loss, and it was a great year. 2 world champions defended their titles, Mikey, Abner, all my younger guys, they all won, just except for 1 loss. I think 2018 is going to be more challenging because they're fighting tougher guys. They're fighting more rounds, so the year's going to be tough. But I expect to have a good year again. I expect maybe to have 2 or 3 more world champions, and if that happens, it would be a great year for me.
All right. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.